Hey fam, it's your girl Nachi, and I'm here with.
Damaris, your virtual football life coach.
Oh, it's a coach. Well,
Get your head in the fucking game.
yeah. You are good for that. You definitely know how to hype
I mean,
someone up.
get your head in the game. Drop the
Yeah,
fucking.
yes. So stupid. Well, welcome back, y'all. Recently Damaris and I were doing some research for the podcast, and I came across a video talking about toxic spirituality, and it made me think about the people that I resonate with and how they differ from what I've seen or I would categorize as toxic spirituality. And I thought this would be a great topic for us to get into because there's so many people out there who pose as spiritual teachers or spiritual healers, and it's a lot more out there than we've seen in the past, and that's just because of where we are today with social media. But it just definitely brings up that whole idea of like, how can we describe toxic spirituality? What is that? How does that look like? And why is it that we certain people resonate with us? Because I would say you resonate with the same type of people that I do, Damaris, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, that's what we're going to get into and talk a little bit more about.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to talk about this because, as you mentioned, with in the past 5 years, there's definitely been a shift and a growing presence of more spiritual influencers. And I like to use the term spiritual influencers because they kind of cover everyone that can, fall under that umbrella, like gurus and spiritual advisors and
Mm-hmm.
spiritual leaders. I like to say influencers because it's just like a nice broad bucket.
Right. Yeah.
And
No, that
so I
sounds.
yeah, and so I found that like in the last 5 years with the growth of social media and especially with the whole global meltdown pandemic, pandemic, whatever you want to call it, there's been a huge surge in that area of influencers. And part of it is because I think people are, the veil is lifting. And when I say the veil is lifting, I'm saying a lot of illusions are being, bubbles are being burst, and
Mm-hmm.
illusions are being destroyed left and right. And so what you always thought you knew to be true now isn't quite. And so because of that, you have a lot of people coming out and speaking about their experience and about their spiritual journey and also using their gifts if that's what their gifts, are tapped into. And so while it's all well and good, there is, as with any industry, a dark side,
Right.
right? Insidiousness. And typically, before it would just be mostly when you think about spiritual influencers, it was really like church leaders and people from different religions. And so now you have like all these gurus and all these influencers all about. And yes, you and I, we resonate with certain spiritual influencers that are authentic. And when we say authentic, for me, it's like I like to see that a person is showing me you're good, you're bad, when stuff ain't so nice, when stuff is doing, going really well, because showing your vulnerability sometimes is just how people can relate to you. I don't want to tap into someone who is always just showing that perfect side of them, right?
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah.
because then there's a level of inauthenticity of this is how your life always is. God bless, good for you. And it's not, there's no hating there. It's just okay, that's not realistic for me, and so I'm likely not going to really be able to relate to you. And I think for us, like when I think about our podcast, we are by no means nobody spiritual influencers, and I'm not claiming that, but I like to think that we're vulnerable enough and authentic enough that you're like, oh, okay, no, they feel like family, I could tap into them. And so this is how like the people, the spiritual influences we like, These are the kind of people that remind us a little bit of ourselves, and that they're putting themselves out there. They're sharing things that aren't so great. And I love to see that, because then it makes me feel you come off as more relatable. I don't want
Right.
anyone perfect. And
Yeah.
so we identified a few different types of toxic spiritual influencers. And I guess, one of them we've talked about is that the unethical guru. And there's a bunch of Netflix specials for all different types of
Right. Right.
spiritual gurus, and how they could use their position of power to take advantage of people who are in a vulnerable state, especially if they're looking for direction in their own spirituality. And unfortunately, those are the ones that sometimes get taken the most advantage of,
Yeah.
because they're they're looking to put their hope in someone or something, and they're looking for that guidance. And if someone is, telling them that, no, follow me, listen to me, because I know the ways, I'm connected to the creator, and there's some sort of gatekeeper, and they believe them to be some sort of gatekeeper, then those are the ones that are the most susceptible to being taken advantage of. Now,
Yeah.
there's no gatekeeper for me. There used to be with the Catholic Church, because we were raised Catholic, and I was a nice church going girl.
Right.
Every Sunday going to my 1 hour mass, which I love, because I can really appreciate the Catholic Church in saying we don't need to be in this building for more than 60 minutes.
And that's it. You get the word and you leave.
Yes, you get the
You
word, you
should
feel it, and you
you sh-
head out.
yes, you should be filled. You should be filled.
My whole Sunday should not be in this one building. That's my opinion. So I appreciated the Catholic Church for that. But they're very much gatekeepers, as are all religions. They're gatekeepers, right? There's always someone. There's, the priest, the preacher, or the pastor, or the rabbi, or the imam. Like, no, I don't need a gatekeeper.
Mhm.
Y'all don't
Yeah.
know? I'm connected to the Most High. I
Right.
tap
Right.
in. Boom,
Right.
boom.
Right.
But that's me knowing that for me. And not
Right.
everyone may feel that connection, even though I believe everyone has that connection, because we're all children of the Most High. So I feel like with unethical gurus, it's easy for them, for certain types of people, and that's who they target, right?
Yeah, and just like you said, with any spiritual leader who professes to know it all and can become very dismissive or manipulative with their knowledge or their so-called knowledge, right? You talked about people who are vulnerable, and those are people who are more susceptible to being manipulated and feeling ashamed. I think that's part of the toxicity to some spiritual leaders, where they shame people instead of helping them grow. And just like we had said, there's certain people or spiritual influencers that we resonate with because of the mere fact of they share realistic issues that they have gone through that may be similar to what we've gone through or things that we could understand and relate to. I prefer that as well. I prefer to see someone who is living real life because, to be honest, no one's perfect. So these gurus or these spiritual leaders who pretend that they're perfect are actually harming the very community that they're professing to protect and to help. And for me it's just like you have to help people go through their season of whatever that is, of that challenge, whatever challenges or issues that they're going through. And we always talk about you have to go through, you have to understand your shadow, right? You have to understand what's that all about, because that is what's teaching you to become better or to evolve. Not even better, because we're always evolving, we're
Right.
always improving on ourselves. It's not even so much that where we are is not a good place. It's just we're
It's an
always
evolution.
right. We should never be stagnant. We should always continue changing and evolving And we look to people, to these spiritual leaders, to these spiritual influencers, as you said, Damaris,
Hmm.
to share and to enlighten us, because we can't all possibly go through the same experience, but I can definitely learn from your experience, because what you've gone through, I can get something out of that so that I can apply that to my own life and move forward. So I
Right.
totally agree with that.
Yeah, I also think it's funny how with the online spiritual influencers, particularly like, the IG spiritual influencers, there are many that will copy and follow other IG spiritual influencers, right?
Mm,
And so it can become very dangerous if you just follow all and take everything that they say as gospel,
right.
because they're human beings too. And I think people put certain people on pedestals, and it's like, no, have to, at least the ones that we like, they tell their their audience, do not put me on a pedestal. I
Yeah.
am only human, and I respect that even more because it's true. Look, you're not the human experience.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
while they may have certain attributes, or like if they're clairvoyant and to some degree, that doesn't mean that they are not going to go through their human journey the same, dealing with the same types of things that we do. And so I appreciate that honesty. I appreciate the transparency. And when I think about when we were doing research on a different topic, actually, we were doing research about trying to understand our audience and who's listening to us and whatnot.
Right. Yeah.
And you came across some other podcasters that talked about spiritual topics, since some of our episodes touch on that topic. You had mentioned there was one where people had started writing reviews speaking about like how that particular spiritual podcaster was no longer relatable, because they're talking about, yes, I'm going to go on my trip to India for 14 days and meditate and it's like,
Right. You're
are you
taking a month off, and people are like,
who's doing
who's
that?
taking a month off? No
Who's
one's
doing that?
taking a month off.
Or this idea of everything is like you just move through your trauma and shit and just put on a layer of positivity to it, and it's going to be all good. Change what you say, how you say it, and it's going to dramatically change your life.
Or
It's That's
even
so surface level to me.
no, it is. It is. Especially saying things like, "Oh, you're in that situation because you weren't thinking positively."
Right.
Hello?
Ma'am, no. What are you talking about?
What? Everybody, every single person on this God good green earth deal with ups and downs
And that's the point of life. Like,
and valleys that we all go through throughout our lifetime. It is never this one plateau of experiences. Everything is the same.
no, that is so funny to me, because then if I were to go by that, then Papi died because we weren't positive. I I would jump off the bridge if I felt like
Girl.
that was the reason why my father isn't on this earth. And that kind of idea of like, just think positively and things are good. No, that is toxic in itself, because that is not realistic. What really you should be doing is being introspective. Ask
Yes.
yourself, why do you feel the way you do?
Right, because acting that way actually invalidates the struggle, and it
Yes.
stops people from processing the pain that they're experiencing and
Yes.
learning from it. So, yeah, no, it's not about just think positively and don't worry about it. It'll get better. And when you think about people who are going through their own experience and you're trying to hold space for them, is to keep that in mind as well,
Yes.
right? It's just like, don't come to them with this, things will be better,
Don't
or
worry.
don't
Yeah.
worry. Sometimes, while it's
It
well
comes from a good
meaning,
place.
right,
Right.
you have to sort of read
Sometimes
the
it feels
room.
disrespectful.
Right. You have to kind of read the room. They may just want space to kind of vent. They may just want to let it out. They just want to feel those emotions. And as a friend or someone who's supporting that person, a partner, spouse, your place is to just be there and listen and be like, yeah, that shit sucks.
Right.
Right?
No, I had a friend back in the day. I swear it would be, she'd always say things like, yeah, she'd always try to put a positive spin to something. And it was like, God damn, just let somebody say something and just be like, yeah, I hear
Hmm.
you.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't blame you for feeling the way you do.
Yeah,
Sometimes that goes
yes.
further than you just, trying to
Nod your head and
not
give me a hug.
acknowledge.
And give me a hug, man.
Yes, yes.
Sometimes I just need that. I don't need you to add any more sauce to it. I don't need you to tell me it's going to be all right. I know it's going to be okay. I know it is. I just need
I
to.
just want to yell and scream right now. I just want to curse somebody out.
And it's funny, she wouldn't say it to me because I would just observe her doing it with other people, and I would be like, oh gosh, yeah, everything doesn't always have to be so positive. But but
Hmm.
with me, I typically, and you know this about me, and anybody that knows me very well, I don't like to even, if something has bothered me, I don't even really like to talk about it because I don't like to dwell in that space
Hmm.
because I've I've already sat with myself. I thought it through. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay, it's done. Whatever. If I keep talking about it and bringing it up,
yeah,
I don't like to vent about certain things.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you about it after the fact when I'm already in a good space.
Right,
Right?
right,
Like
right.
today,
That way.
I told you yesterday I wasn't feeling well. I was feeling very
Hmm.
anxious and I needed to sit with myself and just like be still. And
Yeah,
thankfully my husband calmed me down a little bit. I didn't call or tell you about it because I didn't like the space I was in to begin with, and by
right.
me talking about it even more would just keep me in that space.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, for some people, they need to vent that out. And that's okay to some degree. And you also have to manage that as a person because if you're always emotionally dumping on the same people and you're emotionally dumping on the same topic, I know me.
Hmm.
Look, I give you my advice once, and I'll tell you,
Right,
I'm going to tell you this one time. You're not going to hear me say it again.
right, right.
But please believe I will not let you waste my time also bringing up the same thing. Because I've already told you where I stand, what I think you should do. If you don't want to do it, that's on you.
Tamara, sometimes you have to tone it down a bit.
Mm,
And you and I, we've talked about that.
yes, yes. But I opened, not you, but I opened up virtual football life coach. I know. I'm not pretending. And this is why you've talked to me about that.
Yeah,
And with certain people, what I've done is that I
you just
just
step
won't
back.
I
Yeah.
won't engage in those conversations with those people because they're not going to like how I tell them certain things. And only when I've repeated myself. Here's the thing,
Yeah,
guys,
yeah.
and I've said this.
But
I don't like to repeat myself. Personal life, professional life, not never.
sometimes they're not looking for advice. Sometimes they're just looking, like you said, to just dump. And if it's with permission, then dump away. But
Right, but I don't want to
the
hear the same
person,
thing multiple
yeah.
times.
No, I get it. I get it. Nope.
And I and
I
I
completely
and
get
I'm
it.
glad you said that because I don't give unsolicited advice. And but unless I feel like, okay, let me just, I see you about to drive
You're
onto
going down
oncoming
the right
traffic. You're literally,
wrong road.
literally driving onto oncoming traffic.
Yes,
Let
yes.
me
Hmm.
tell you what I think. But yeah, otherwise, but I, I even forgot why we even got on that tangent. But yeah, look, that's life. Back to these kind of spiritual influencers that are a topic. I would also like to add the letting ideology dictate what feels intuitively right to you.
What do you
And
mean by that? Go ahead.
yes, and what I mean by that is back to religion. Like for me, I could easily let my Catholic ideology dictate, okay, this is a sin. You're going to go to hell. Not only is it a sin, it's a mortal sin. So, right, like I just said, you're going to go to
Hmm.
hell.
Right.
and you're not good enough, so you have to confess to the priest. Then you are okay. You'll be able to go to heaven, all these things. And I don't think so,
Right. Right.
because that never really sat well with me. And knowing, I'm part of a collective that comes from the Creator, I have to also believe and feel connected through my community and through the Creator. And I have to listen to myself and what feels right for me.
Right.
And that's also being mindful of being influenced by also what society's telling you. No, because nobody's going to tell me outside of me, Damaris, this is how you should feel. You should always vote this way. You should always look to do this. You should always take a vaccine. You should always, if they tell you, not, she's like, how that come part of the,
Right. Because I'm like, what?
I,
Where are we
I mean,
going with this?
no, okay. Look, guys. I'm not anti-vax. I have vaccine. I have been vaccinated. I just don't like to be told what to do. That's really the bottom line.
Oh my gosh.
And I think, and I'm still dealing with post-traumatic stress
No, seriously,
disorder.
because we're talking about toxic spirituality, and your ass is like, no, I don't gotta take a vaccine. No, I'm like,
No,
what?
I know,
Where are we
I
going?
know. No, but this idea of, again, just these ideological positions of you have to do this because we say so. And whatever, whoever's that we, right? It could
And
be the church, it could be, the government, it could be your friends, it could be your family, your culture. You have to
right,
do this. And it's like, no, you should reject that if it doesn't feel right to you, if it's not intuitively in line with you, because of society's conditioning. You're not as connected to yourself and really feeling what's right and what's wrong, right?
right, yeah,
And I could say that easily for myself. There were certain things in my life where, no, I very much cared about the optics of certain things because I worked in corporate, or
of course.
because how I wanted my friends to view me and all that stuff. And now I just don't care. But
Well, because
because certain things just intuitively don't feel right to me.
yeah,
And I think I brought up the vaccine because I think for me that was something, especially that was something really big 5 years ago, where I had family and friends be like, Damaris.
well,
And
yeah,
I'm just
it's
like,
right because a lot of people will peg things, and not just that, but just to
yeah,
your whole point, it's either you're good or you're bad, right? There's
right.
never there's never a gray area where it's like where we don't have or we can't think for ourselves. It's someone saying, if you do this, this is good. If you do that, it is
Yes.
bad.
Yeah, that's
And
what I'm
so
getting at.
people
Yes.
and people struggle with that, especially when they're trying to be good people, right? Like, I want to
Yes.
be good. Like, no, I don't want to be seen as bad. I don't want to be
Yes.
someone who's not here representing God in
Right.
in its fullest, right? Yeah. So when you're telling me that if I do a particular action or behave a certain way, that I know I'm no longer godly. I am
Right. Or
now
you're no
this
longer a good
evil
person. Or now you're selfish
person,
because,
right?
and it's just like, no, I just have a brain, and I think critically, and I like to think for myself. I
Yeah.
don't want anyone to think for me and tell me, because my whole life I've moved with, okay, yeah, this doesn't feel right. Okay, I move
Mhm.
along. I don't like
Mhm.
this doesn't work for me. And if those things work for you, that's fantastic. But you have to listen to yourself to really know, does that work
Right.
for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm saying I do for me. And that rubs people the wrong way sometimes. Okay. And frankly, but I don't care what you do with your life as long as you don't impact my life
Right.
by telling me what to do. That's all. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. And so, yeah, that was probably a little too much time on that. But anyway, you know who you got here. So, and I feel like there's always these red flags, right? When you see from the spiritual community of,
Mhm.
okay,
Mhm.
somebody sound the alarm, something
Right.
in the milk ain't clean with these
Right.
people.
Right.
And I think one of the we kind of already talked about is that whole good vibes only culture. Good
Yeah.
vibes only. Okay,
Yes.
yeah, no
Love
doubt.
and
Like,
light.
right.
Great, but it's not always love and light. That's not how we grow. It's
It's the idea of, look, your life started in the womb. And guess what? It was the womb. The womb was dark.
yeah.
You started in darkness and you came out into the light. So you very much needed to grow in that darkness before you came out.
Yeah.
And so there are things that we have to do on our shadow side of, there's work. How do you address whatever past trauma? How do you heal if you don't address the issues that you've had in your life? And also recognizing through that, you can't expect people to give you closure that you may want. How
Mm-hmm.
do you learn to give yourself the closure? How do you learn to do this for yourself, to
Right.
move forward?
Right.
Because that's our human journey. It's not about getting to a destination. It's about how we keep journeying.
Growing. Right. How we can continue to grow.
There's no stop. There's no
No.
stop. Stopping
Be-
is when you're dead.
yeah, yes.
Real talk.
Because we go through different phases in our lives. We're not
Yep.
just like, I'm not the same person when I was a toddler or a teenager or a young adult. We go through different phases and we learn different lessons in life. And we just have to be open to those lessons. And like you said, grow from it.
Right. And so yeah, that that's a red flag. It's always about good times only and love and light.
Hmm.
That's gonna invalidate your struggle. And to my family, mi familia, los primos, we already know. Come on, stop. To the diaspora, stop playing with us. Like,
Right.
that's not
Right.
a real thing.
Right.
And I think we touched upon this too, this idea of you blaming people for their hardships, right? The That you manifested this because you didn't think this way.
Hmm.
The superiority that comes with some spiritual influencers. And it's interesting to see because, yeah, like, to me, I never like the influencers that feel that I know better than you.
Right, like
Whether,
they're enlightened and
yes,
you're not here yet. You're not here yet.
yes. And whether that be because, like, if whether it's in a church setting or whether it's on IG, but that whole, you know, I know more than you, I'm more connected than you. No,
Mhm.
no,
Mhm.
no.
We're
Um,
all connected.
yeah. And also any kind of influencer that's like, be humble, that's a red flag for me. Why should I dim my light?
So wait a minute. So they tell you to be humble. You're like, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Be humble about what? Muhammad Ali was never humble.
He sure wasn't.
He said, it ain't bragging if it's the truth or something
Eh,
like that. And I'm like, when I tell you that resonated with me,
you was like, okay, you said a word.
I was like, I feel seen. I feel seen. It's not bragging if it's the truth. What do you want me to
But another red flag I would say is people who always say you can manifest yourself out of anything. And to me, this is like you can't manifest your way out of systemic oppression or
Right, right,
generational trauma. You actually
right.
have to work through it,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
And we have like our bonus episode. We talk about manifestation, but we don't speak to it in the sense of like you can manifest yourself out of a
Right,
situation. You know what I'm saying? It's just like that's not how it works.
right, right, right. And yeah, we shared how we manifested our home in Harlem, but it was also, when you hear it, it's not, ooh, manifesting every day. We're
Right,
visualizing. No,
right.
we're
We're not
doing. We're
meditating
doing.
on it. Yeah.
We were doing things. We were doing things. We just were not worried. You
Right,
know.
right.
So yeah, no, that's actually a great call. And yeah, I would also say another red flag is when the influencer is like kind of like not calling people out on their bullshit. To me, kind of not enforcing boundaries, if you will, I guess, where that idea of you're just you're just like, it's okay, kind of like, I pray for those people, but it,
It's
like,
always a prayer and a thought. Yeah.
or kind of like, I'm gonna take the high road, and it's just like, yeah, you can take the high road, I mean, to a degree, but at some times it's like you also need to let people know
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not the one.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true.
Respectfully, right? Especially if it's your mother or a family member.
Yeah.
But I'm not the one.
But just kind of talking about that and just family in general, when they talk about, um, we're going to pray about it versus not going to therapy, like there's certain situations that you would need therapy for. And you'll have those people who would say, well, we're just going to, pray about, she has a mental or he has a mental illness, we're just gonna pray about it. We don't need to deal with that real issue that's happening. We're
Mm,
just gonna pray
yes.
on it. And I think that becomes problematic because for those people who are dealing with something traumatic or an illness or anything of that nature, when you just say, I'll pray about it and things don't happen the way they would like it,
Right.
that's harmful to them. That's harmful to them. And so,
Absolutely.
and I think part of that is, the stigma that comes with therapy. We talked about that in a previous episode, in the mental health episode that we had, where there's a stigma around that.
Yes. Especially in Caribbean communities,
Hmm.
that is absolutely true. It's like, what do you need that for?
Hmm.
You don't need
Hmm.
to talk to anyone. Yeah. Pray it away.
Yeah,
Or just forget about it, clean the house, and
that's it.
get over it. And you're like, wait, what? That's more important. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that is a big, that's a huge thing. And using faith to avoid issues, which is along
Hmm.
those lines,
Hmm.
where
Hmm.
it's again, if you pray on it only, then you pray it away or you pray it to come to you. And yes, like, don't get me wrong, I
It's
pray all the
part of it,
time, every
right? It's
day.
part of
Yes.
it, but it's not the only thing one should do.
Right.
And when someone is dealing with something spiritually and they're trying to heal past traumas and really healing themselves in general, sometimes you have to listen to what it is that they need and not just make a blanket statement of, well, we're gonna pray over you, or god god knows what he's doing. Yes, he does.
Absolutely. Right. Because we praise him all the time.
Yes, all the time. But this person is needing something right now. Like they're trying to figure things out, and they may not, obviously, if they're trying to spiritually heal, go through a spiritual healing, there's a lot of reflection that they have to do. There's a lot of inner work that they need to go through. And part of that is actually dealing with those traumas, those emotions, and not burying it by just saying God gonna take care of it. You know what I'm saying? It's
Right.
it's it's not, it should not be treated as something that is going to magically disappear on its own, because
I
that's not
think,
how God works.
no, no. And the way you and I believe our human existence to be, we're very much about, this is a journey for us to learn individual lessons.
Right.
And so you have to go through those lows to understand and take the time after those lows to think through, what is the lesson I'm supposed to learn from this?
Mhm. Mhm.
There is something there.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something there.
Yeah.
Even in our father's death, the most traumatic thing we've experienced to date,
Mm-hmm.
there were things that I've learned about myself that has changed my outlook on things dramatically
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Has gotten me in touch with my highest self even more so. And I don't think that really would have happened without his passing, without that kind of transformative change. And
Right.
that's the thing about life, is that change is the only constant.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
Like, change is always going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Slightly off topic, when we talk about every time you see with new generations, now Gen Z, they're like, oh, I've had to deal with this in my life, blah, 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 these major milestones or these major events, global events. And it's like, yeah, you guys are growing up in a crazy time. But I'm like, so did we, right? So did our parents. Every time it was always kind of crazy,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true.
right?
It's true.
Nothing is smooth and easy going for any consistent amount of period, because something's bound to change. And so, and that is life,
That is.
as hard as that is. But you just have to think, are you going to be resistant, or are you going to bend and flow with it and go in the direction that you're meant to go, so you can learn what you got to learn? Because when I'm telling you that I'm trying to learn all my lessons on this in this lifetime, I'm not trying to come back. Earth is ghetto. Maybe I shouldn't say that, because then they're going to be like, you didn't learn your lesson.
Right.
Earth isn't ghetto. You're coming right back. Just kidding. Earth
Sounds
is
like
not
she
ghetto.
didn't learn.
But I think I want this to be my last go around. I want
Right.
to be an
Right.
ancestor that helps my descendants, you know? I don't think I need to come back. But
Mhm.
honestly though, I do want to learn all the things I need to learn.
Right. Right.
And so when you have that kind of approach of, yeah, everything's going to be fine, just pray on it, or just think good thoughts. Yes, absolutely. Always think good thoughts, but also time box yourself and be in your feelings.
Yes, I
Cry your
would say
cries.
yes. Give yourself a
You
time
have
limit.
to.
Yep.
You have
Mhm.
to. Because trust and believe that those feelings do not, all they do is manifest into some ailment in your body. Next you know, you go into the doctor and you got some serious issues. I promise you. So just,
Let it out.
yes, yes. And I think this is kind of like where, I think for you and I, this is how we've been able to reclaim our spirituality and how we've been able to heal. And again, thank God for my sister. Thank you, thank you, thank you. My gratitude is immense, because I could not, no, no, I could not have gone through what we've gone through,
Right. Right. Yeah.
point blank. And so, and part of that is embracing all the emotions. Shit ain't
It
easy.
is. No, it's not. It's not.
And that's the worst thing about it. It's just like, there are times when you're like, I don't want to fucking cry. But guess what? Let that out. I can't have that
Yeah.
in me.
Yeah.
And it's not good for it to just be sitting in you and repressing. And our
True.
peoples love to repress.
Sometimes I cry just because
Come on now.
I gotta let it out because I got too much tension.
Right. But this is also, and then also, this is why I set boundaries. This is why everyone should set boundaries. This is why we have 2 episodes on boundaries.
Right. Yeah, because it's
Because we
important.
grow up in a culture where there are no such things as boundaries, especially within our family. And I love my family to death. I love my
But you
family
do,
heavy.
yeah. But you do have to set boundaries. That's just
But
that's
there's
the
certain
only way
things,
you can maintain
yeah,
your sanity.
yes. But I will not bend on certain things. I will not bend. Right,
Right.
Nachi?
Yes. She could be so annoying.
I know, I know. But I bend and I do anything for my sister. I'm constantly bending for her.
That's true.
Where people may get one chance, she
I
gets
get
like three.
two.
You get three, Nachi. You get three.
I get three. All
I told
right.
you that before. You get three. But
Okay.
then By the third time, then it's going to be like, game over. Game over, man. Like, it's done. It's done.
No
No.
more.
Yeah, setting boundaries is huge. That is an important way to reclaim, to heal and reclaim your spirituality. Like, again, we're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yes.
This is it. We're not human beings and dealing with spirituality. No. Because I was here before this vessel, and
Mm-hmm.
I will be here past this vessel. When I say here, hopefully just in the spiritual realm and not on the earthly realm.
Raz, you don't want to come back?
No, I think I'm good. I think I've learned all the things. I've learned all the things. I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, so yeah, and I like this. You wrote this in our outline, but it's finding balance between faith, personal responsibility, and action.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's just a good balance because like we've been saying throughout the show, there's never a it's not black and white, right? There has to be a balance. We are like it's a spiritual being. We were raised under the Catholic faith. So we while we're more, I guess, spiritual than religious, we still have that foundation. And just having that balance of who we are. And again, that's where boundaries come into play because that's going to help you create those balances is setting those boundaries. And for me, things have never been black or white for me. There's always gray area. There's always, well, I don't have to do that. They're like you said earlier, there are things with the Catholic tradition that I didn't agree with, but that didn't bother me. I'm going to continue doing what I do,
Oh, I
right?
know, because you kept going for communion, even though you were
Because if
had
it
mortal
doesn't
sin.
make sense to if it doesn't make sense to me, it just doesn't make sense. And that's that. I mean, I don't know.
I'm sure you don't apply this to laws, right? Yeah, it's just like this law doesn't make sense to me. So, but
Some,
we're right. Facts. I agree.
some if it doesn't make sense.
No, but absolutely, and I think the other big takeaway is personal responsibility within finding that balance, because again, you are you're responsible for your own actions.
That's
You're
it.
accountable for the
Hmm.
outcome of your life. No one else's. No one else's. So it's just a choice.
Yeah.
You can put that power, you can empower others to have that kind of power over your life, or you can take that back and do what it is that you want to do with your life, how you want to do it.
Hmm.
And so that's something that always is not, for some it's maybe not as easy of a concept to grasp, because they may feel powerless, but actually we're all individually very powerful, and it is just a matter of where do you give your power away, and you have to think
Hmm.
about that.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I think kind of the question that, especially as you look for spiritual influencers, and again, that's an umbrella term that we're using to cover pastors, religious leaders, or IG, social media spiritual influencers and all that. You should be thinking, is what they're saying and what I'm hearing, is it empowering me or is it shaming me? And
Right.
I think you had positioned that quite well also in the outline, just like, how do I feel about that? Do I feel good? Do I feel empowered? Or,
Yeah.
do I feel like shit? And sometimes feeling empowered means like, wow, I'm now thinking about this in this way, even though it offended me at first. Because there's a couple of influencers that we follow that,
Hmm.
for some, they're very abrasive, but I don't
Hmm.
care about that. But for some people, it is a lot to handle. And so maybe when you take away the emotion and you listen to the message, do you feel empowered? And then
Right. Does it
and that's really
energize you? Yeah, does
right,
it energize you
right.
to take action? Because that's really what it's all about.
Yeah,
Sometimes you're just not seeing things for what it is, or
yep,
you have a different perspective. So when you hear another person's perspective, you tend to have a different point of view, like, oh, you know what, I didn't really look at it that way.
right. I didn't
And
consider it
that
from that
that
perspective.
yes, and that makes a lot of sense. And you're right, there's some that are very um abrasive, and folks get a little
Yeah,
get a little
ruffles get
offended.
feathered. Yeah, ruffles get feathered.
But it's funny because I love it.
Yeah, for me, I don't get caught up in the emotion of it because
Hmm.
if it doesn't apply to me, I let it fly. Okay. Or if they feel a certain way, okay, like I'm still gonna move the way I want to move.
And
If it doesn't resonate with me.
right,
So
yeah. And I like the fact that you said that, because and it's very important. Just because someone says something, or you feel what they're trying to say is too much, but you might have taken a piece of it. For me, I look at others or people's perspective. I kind of take what I need and let go
yeah,
of the rest. Like I don't have to agree with every single thing a person says for me
no.
not to get a message that's meant for me to get. Right? Because we all have different, like I said, we all have different lessons. We each have our own experiences that we're going through. And sometimes a message may come through in the most unexpected way from the most
Yeah.
unexpected person.
Listen, listen. I listen to all types of people because I
Me
never like
too.
to be in an echo chamber.
Yes.
I do
I
not.
feel like I need to hear everybody because,
Yes, especially those that I view as the enemy. I need to know what you're
yes,
saying. I need to know
yes,
what
I
you're
need to
thinking.
know why or what you're saying.
So I keep friends and enemies close. I need to see what
Hmm.
y'all all saying.
Yep.
And then I make a decision of what resonates with me and what aligns with me or not. But
But
I
that's
don't
how it's supposed to be.
yeah.
And I think that's where it really starts, is for people to be open to hearing
Hmm.
others out, and then taking whatever message they're meant to take, and let go of the other stuff.
Absolutely. And I think people need to recognize at times separating the message from the messenger.
Yes.
And that's the truth. Your spiritual team is going to have you receive and hear messages at different points in your life, different ways. And it's up to you to be aware of that stuff, to
Yes.
be present. And usually you're aware of it when you're present in the moment. Because when you're
Right.
not present in the moment and you're thinking about what happened a year ago with so and so, or what
Hmm.
you want to do
Hmm.
in 3 years, you're
Right.
not present. So you're not getting the messages you're supposed to get. Listen, we have talked about a lot in this episode, even things that I didn't expect to talk about. But as I'm talking through them, I'm like, holy shit, I'm connecting the dots of how that connected to the spirituality too. Even though
Yeah.
it may not have sounded like it, and I'm not
Right.
going to bring up what exactly that was, because
We
then
all
people are going to be like,
know.
she is obsessed.
Yes,
I'm not
she's
obsessed.
obsessed.
No, it's just PTSD. It's just
Yes.
PTSD, guys. Never
Chat.
again. Never again. PTSD.
Oh my god.
So I think you said it very well, Nachi, about ultimately you have to figure out what serves you best, and that is how you can build your spiritual practice. I think for me, spiritual practice is a very individual thing, and that is something that should work for you, not what you're told should work for you. And
Hmm.
that could look any way. And this is a judgment free zone. And I hope you're not judging us. But if you are, oh well, because I'm not judging you.
Right. It is
I wish nothing but the
okay.
best. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Look, we're all gonna think different things in different ways and connect differently, and that is a-okay. And so I hope you got something out of this conversation. I hope you also laughed. And I also hope that we said some things that helps you think about your situation, and if there's anything to think about, and if nothing else, that you just enjoyed it and you were able to kiki with us. So we'd like to end, as we always do, that there's a lot of noise out there, but our message is consistent. Stop getting distracted by the smoke and mirrors, tune out the noise, and focus on your divine purpose in life. vibrate higher, to elevate your frequency. And always, thank you for listening.